When people find out that I homeschool, one of the most common questions that I get asked is, how do you do it all? How do you balance everything? And there's really a lot of different moving parts that answer that question, but the one that I'm focusing on today is our curriculum. Hey y'all, my name is Felicia, and if you don't know, I am a homeschool mom, but I also run a business from home. I founded a nonprofit that is a therapy clinic here in our town, and so I work from home full time running that business while also taking care of the house and homeschooling my kids and doing all the things that a mom needs to get done, right? Today, I'm going to share with you my curriculum that I use and how it really helps me to be able to still homeschool my children and just live out our family values while also pursuing this passion project of mine, which is the nonprofit clinic. To start out, I think it's important to mention that we follow a Charlotte Mason philosophy in our homeschool. I absolutely love the focus on good literature. Our family is full of really big readers, so that's very important to us. And I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful philosophy, both in our homeschool and just our home in general. We start off every morning by sitting down here on the couch and we have our read aloud time. Some people call this morning basket. I don't call it morning basket because there are times that we have to start this in the afternoon, so I just call it read alouds. We always start our read alouds with a Bible story. And I actually use this curriculum, which is from Abeka. And now, Abeka is not a Charlotte Mason curriculum by any stretch. Abeka was actually written to be able to use in schools. So it has very traditional lesson plans, and I do not follow those exactly or at all. Really, what I do is it is listed out like which Bible stories to read on which day, and it wants you to do reviews and ask specific questions, and I don't do any of that. I do utilize their Bible verse memory cards because I think memorization is very important, and my children also really enjoy it. So I do use the memorization. But what I do is I just go one lesson plan, or excuse me, I go one Bible story at a time. And then at the end of that Bible story, we do a very age appropriate and ability appropriate oral narration. So I will just say, what did you think about that story? What did you like about that story? What did you not like about that story? Just I'd ask kind of some open-ended questions that my little ones can answer at their level to start kind of getting that idea of being able to do oral narration. So I will also say that this curriculum, it all came in individual books. So I have it tabbed out here. You can see I have it tabbed out here. So it has like Old Testament 1 and 2, New Testament 1 and 2. And then I just took the stories all out of the books and put them in this binder because it was so much easier for me. Also have pictures that go with the stories. Every story has different pictures. Like, so there's light and darkness and different pictures that go with it. So it kind of brings, and they're beautiful, beautiful artwork. So it brings in that art aspect a little bit as well into our Bible time. Now, while I primarily do use this Abeka curriculum, there is another Bible story book that I really enjoy. Alternate between the Abeka Bible stories and then these children's illustrated Bible, Old and New Testament stories. And for this one, we're not doing any kind of memory work. We're just going every day reading one Bible story, and I just go in order and I do the same thing to kind of prep that oral narration, where I just ask them a few questions at the end of that. And that is what we do for Bible. I've just been rotating them so far. I do. When we get through all the Abeka stories, then I move over to the Children's Illustrated Bible, and we get through all of those, and then I go back to Abeka. After our Bible, we read a poem. And for poetry study right now, I just read one poem every day. I really, really love this book, which is Sing a Song of Seasons. It has a nature poem for every single day of the year. So we kind of do a little bit of a calendar moment too, where I say, okay, well, what's today's date? All right, well, then we need to find it in the book. And then when you find that day's date in the book and you read the poem that goes with that day. And a lot of the poems are very wonderful and beautiful. Every once in a while, there's one that I'm like, okay, that was strange. And then we move on. I do have another poetry book that I've used from time to time, which is just The Real Mother Goose. It just has lots and lots of Mother Goose poems, and it's just so fun. Now, the next part of our read aloud time is I alternate science and history. So, like one day we'll do science, the next day we'll do history. And those two subjects are always, at least at this moment in time when my children are still this young, they are just during our read alouds. I don't do anything extra for science or history other than what I do during our read aloud time. We did try and are just finishing up this. This is from The Good and the Beautiful. It's Little Hearts and Hands, Big Book of Science Stories, and it comes with a parent guide. This is their Sparks and Stars, so it's all about the solar system and some about like different power sources of electricity and those kind of things. I have enjoyed it. However, there's a lot of like projects that it wants you to do, and I'm not a science project mom. I'm just not. So mostly I kind of sort of have used the parent guide, but not a ton. We've been doing mostly a lot of the stories in the book. And the stories are great. Like every story covers a different subject. And then at the end of each story, it has like this page, like of fun facts. It's been really lovely, but we are at the very end of this. And as soon as we finish it, I'm going to go back to what I was doing before for science, which I will show you are these Burgess books. So it's just beautiful, gorgeous living stories. There are some pictures, here and there, but it just introduces like different animals or flowers, whichever one you're reading, in such a fun storytelling way that really sticks with the kids. And so even though the outside might not look like, preschool, younger elementary, they are loved and enjoyed. So as soon as we finish up what we were doing for The Good and the Beautiful, I'm just going back to these. Currently for history, we have been reading this book, We the People, the United States Constitution Explored and Explained. And it's been really nice. I think it might be a tad advanced for my youngest. However, the pictures and stuff and the way it's laid out, it's very lovely. And so very like accessible in that way for my kids. And basically it just goes through the Constitution, and then it goes through bit by one at a time each one of the amendments, explains what it is. Sometimes it explains it really at their level, but sometimes it also explains it in terms that they would understand, using examples that are more child related. So that's very fun. It's just fact based. It is nonpartisan, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's just given the facts, laying it out exactly as it is, which is what I need it to do. For English language arts and math, we are using The Good and the Beautiful. I've really enjoyed it so far. It seems to be one that people either love or hate. And I did go back and forth on if I was going to switch or not. And I decided this year I'm going to go ahead and do another year of The Good and the Beautiful, because I just love how open and go it is. So this is the level K right now. My daughter's just about to start this. In fact, she will dig into this one like tomorrow. And she's my youngest and I can't believe she's starting kindergarten. But I love that it is just open and go. So you just open up to that day's lesson and just start going down the page. That is so crucial for me because I do not have time to spend hours building my own curriculum or doing a lot of prep work and everything. So something like this is very important. If we were ever in the future to move away from The Good and the Beautiful, it would have to be another open and go curriculum, because that is just what works with our family, with our schedule, my schedule with working as well. I need that extra like or not having that prep work. It's very important. So I love that you just open and go. One thing that you will find with this Good and the Beautiful curriculum is that it also incorporates poetry and art study. So in different lessons, you may see, a beautiful piece of art and it'll have the child interact with it in some way. Sometimes it's by looking at the colors. Sometimes it's in kind of a math lesson of like count how many sheep are in this photo or picture. And that's fine. I think that's great. I know picture study is a big part of the Charlotte Mason curriculum, and the Good and the Beautiful does go in line with the Charlotte Mason philosophy. Sometimes when it is a day that is just a picture study or art study and just poetry, sometimes I will skip that because we do those things on our own as well. Which reminds me that another thing that we do during our read alouds I forgot to mention. Because my children are still young, the idea of doing composer study, we do it a little bit differently. I use these story orchestra books for introducing that idea of like classical music, and we have several of them. My children absolutely adore these books, and honestly, so do I. It'll tell the story, and then on every single page, it has a button for you to press, and it'll play a small snippet from that piece of music. And on the back page, you have information about the composer, some glossary terms that you can go over. So we absolutely adore the story orchestra books for a composer study element or a music study element. And with my children's ages and just their ability levels right now, this has been absolutely perfect. Back to our coursework for math, we also are using the Good and the Beautiful. Now, last year, I did not use the Good and the Beautiful. I'm going back to it this year. I had a little bit of a tantrum with the Good and the Beautiful math the very first year we did it. And so I switched over to CTC math. My reasoning for that was that my oldest really struggles with fine motor skills. That is just difficult for him, and it's not just that he struggles with like handwriting, he struggles to hold the pencil. So fine motor, like that, that's a big hurdle to overcome. In the Good and the Beautiful math, at least their kindergarten curriculum, which I started with him 2 years ago, there is a lot of tracing. And so if you look at this is pretty much one lesson, and it's almost entirely tracing. And that was so frustrating. It was frustrating for him, and it was frustrating for me because I knew that he was getting the concepts, but the actual writing piece was difficult. So we moved over to CTC math because that's something that you do on the computer, and he could easily just like type the answer. And I really loved it for that reason. However, CTC math is a mastery model and not a spiral model, which is fine, and it's a great math program, but for him, it just really wasn't sticking all the way. Like once he would hit mastery on something and then go and do something else, all of this information that he like had mastered just kind of like poofed away. And so we would reach a point where he needed to pull on some of those foundational skills, and it was like they had just poofed away, and I was concerned. So we're going to try the Good and the Beautiful math again for him, and I've actually backed him up as well to make sure that we are really hitting some of those foundational skills that he needs to then be able to progress in his mathematics. Another thing that we do together that is part of our homeschool curriculum, but also just part of like our family structure, is we read together a lot. So we have a fiction book usually going all the time, like a chapter book, and I usually will read a little bit of that during read alouds. I may read it at little other points during the day, little pockets of time we'll all sit down and cozy up together and read a chapter of a book. We read picture books like crazy. I mean, we really spend a lot of time just reading together. We also try to spend some time outside, just being outside, enjoying nature, taking care of our chickens and our garden, Nature study is also a component of Charlotte Mason, and I don't do any kind of formal nature study at this point, but I do just make sure that my children are spending time outside every single day. One of the main reasons that this curriculum works so well for this season of life that we're in right now is because it is both an open and go method and it is so flexible. And when I am picking out a curriculum and when I was looking at into like the philosophy of what our homeschool would look like, the two main things that I needed to consider was the fact that I am working a full-time job running a business from home and that my son is autistic. And really, there's not a neurotypical person in this house. So I needed something that was going to work with my schedule and that was going to be wildly flexible. This works, and homeschool in general works because, like I said, we don't call it a morning basket because sometimes read alouds happen in the afternoon and we have the flexibility to be able to do that. So sometimes we do read alouds first and then our curriculum, and sometimes we do it the other way around, and sometimes we go in a different order, and all of that's okay. If I could give you any piece of advice or encouragement in your homeschool, it would just be to find the things that work for your unique family. You don't need to try to replicate or mirror what I'm doing or what another creator on YouTube is doing. It doesn't have to look perfect, it just has to be. And it has to be what is going to work the best for your family. So maybe, Charlotte Mason is such a huge blessing for us. And I couldn't imagine a world, just because I'm such a lover of literature, I couldn't imagine a world where we weren't reading all the time. But if that doesn't work for you, you just need to find what does. And that's okay. That's not wrong or broken. It's just different, and different is fine. I would love to know what curriculum that you are using in your homeschool or what you're considering using. And if anything I said during this video made you think, oh, I know something that would be amazing for her, she should try this, please let me know. I'm always open to suggestions, and I love learning about new things. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.